You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. In this show, we go beyond the campfire stories to bring you firsthand encounters from people who say they've seen something impossible, from backwoods trails and remote mountain haulers to quiet farms and crowded highways. The stories come from everywhere, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. These are the voices of the people who've lived it, so settle in, because today you'll hear another account that just might change the way you see the woods forever. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, you've got the privilege of talking to Scott today. Scott is an individual that listens to the show over on the YouTube platform. He's a hunter, an outdoorsman, a hiker. He's had some really interesting things happen over the years that he's here to talk about today. So welcome to the show, Scott. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Absolutely. It sounds like there's going to be some really interesting things shared today, but I want to make sure that you have the time to share them. And we're going over to the state of North Carolina, correct?
Correct.
All right. Well, Scott, feel free to take us back to that first situation you had happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first experience happened in the early 1990s. I had a friend that had property next to Uwharrie in North Carolina, and he invited me and my hunting partner to hunt his property. So we took him up on his offer. We stayed the night at his place the day before the hunt. Unfortunately, my hunting partner had gotten too deep into a bottle of Jack Daniels. He had no interest in going hunting that morning, but I still did. So I got up that morning very early before dawn. Been raining quite a bit. It was extremely foggy that morning. And I was into traditional bow hunting. So I was still hunting with my bow up along this trail. And like I said, it was very, very foggy. Probably couldn't see 5 yards in front or 5 yards behind. So still hunting up this trail. There's about, I'd say, a 7-8 foot bank above me on my right hand side of the trail. On the left hand side of the trail. And then on the right-hand side of the trail, it sloped down into a creek bottom, which was where he said the deer would be, and he was right. So I'm still hunting, being very, very quiet, taking a few steps, watching, listening, and all of a sudden, something jumped off the bank on my left-hand side onto the trail behind me. I could feel the vibration through the ground, and it made a low, guttural grunt. I couldn't see it because of the fog. I didn't hear it take off, and I didn't think anything about it at the time. I thought maybe it was just a big buck, but with that deep, guttural grunt, it made me rethink it. That was very first, and I didn't hear it take off either. So I don't know what it was. Some people said it could have been a bear. I don't know. I don't think bears make low guttural grunts like that. So I didn't think anything about it, continued with my hunt, wasn't able to get anything. So that was the first pretty ambiguous experience.
It's such a wild area. The Uwharrie National Forest has a lot of accounts come out of that area. And you said it was a low guttural grunt. Had you ever heard anything else like that when you were out hunting before?
No, sir. I don't hunt hogs, and I don't hunt bear. I hunt at that time mostly whitetail. So yeah, I'd never heard anything like that before. So I thought it was kind of unusual. It didn't even scare me or anything, because at first I thought it might have been like a big buck that had jumped off that bank. But the bank was like 7-8 feet high. So yeah, at the time I didn't think anything unusual about it, but after my second and third experiences, I started thinking about it more and more.
Oh, absolutely. How far back on the trail would you estimate that landing was?
I would say the fog was extremely dense. I would say probably 7 to 10 yards behind me. When it hit the ground, I could feel the vibration through my feet. And, thinking back on it, if it was a buck, I don't think I would have been able to feel the vibration through the ground.
No, absolutely. And I'm not a hunter myself, so I don't have a lot of knowledge regarding going out and spending a lot of time with deer, but is this something that a deer would even do where it's jumping off of a steep bank about 8 feet up and then just, landing down in a trail and then getting out of there?
It's possible. They can jump very high fence lines and stuff like that. So yeah, it is possible. But I just didn't think I would be able to feel the vibration through the ground.
Absolutely. Is this a trail that you took on the way back to?
Yes, it is.
So when you were going back later on that day on the same trail, were you able to kind of stop in the area where that happened and look around, see if you saw anything out of the ordinary?
No, I did not, because at the time I didn't think there was anything unusual about it. Like I said, until I thought about it years later. If I'd had the wherewithal, I probably would have stopped and looked for tracks or, whatever sign I could find. But at that time, I was just concerned about getting back to his house.
Yeah, that makes sense. But the other, and not saying to go into them yet, but the other two experiences, do those also happen in the Uwharrie?
No, sir. They happened in different parts of North Carolina.
Gotcha. So after, well, let's say, you've had now this current day, you have a different way of looking at things. You're obviously listening to some things regarding Bigfoot. Have you looked into this area and found any encounters from people in the area about things related to Bigfoot they've had happen in the Uwharries?
Oh, yeah. Be honest with you, I miss North Carolina. I love Wyoming, but I miss North Carolina. So anytime I can listen to an experience in North Carolina, I do.
Absolutely.
And I've listened to a whole bunch of encounters in the Uwharrie forest. And at that time, back then, I wasn't really aware of all the activity in the Uwharries, but obviously I am now.
Can you think of any reasons that might make that specific forest it's really a hot spot for Bigfoot activity?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of forest cover. There's plenty of wild game. There's plenty of waterways. Yeah, it's just a natural habitat that I think they would thrive in. Not to mention, like most of most of the population goes to Uwharrie on the weekends, and during the weekdays it's mostly deserted. So I think it'd be prime habitat.
That's true. And this had happened, you had said, on the weekdays, correct?
This was actually on a Saturday, but it was on private property. So we weren't, expecting anybody else on that property.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, definitely a very unique, weird thing that happened right off the bat, but feel free to continue with the second thing you've experienced.
Okay, so fast forward December 11th, 2010, I was paralyzed in my right arm and shoulder, 97% in a workplace accident. So I had to have multiple surgeries, had to go through intensive physical rehab. And so at that time, after the rehab and everything, I was living in Shelby, North Carolina, and I would go to local state park in between Shelby and Charlotte that borders on South Carolina state line to get back into shape, because I was pretty much out of shape at that time. So I would go to this local state park and I would hike approximately 3 to 4 times a week just to get back into shape. Is a very steep hike, approximately a 4-mile hike, very steep switchbacks. So I figured that would be a great way to get back into the woods and get back into shape so I could take up hunting again and just be active again. So I would hike this, like I said, I would hike this state park 3 to 4 times a week, usually during the weekdays, because during the weekends, the park was really super crowded. it'd be difficult to find a parking spot on the weekends. So I would go during the week, and I got to know this trail very, very well, just with the amount of time that I would hike it back and forth. So this happened around, I want to say September 2016. I was hiking up the trail, and I noticed that there was a 2-inch oak sapling on the right side of the trail that was broken off at about a 4-foot level. The top of the sapling is about a 15-foot sapling. The top of the sapling was still attached to the bottom part of the sapling that was still planted in the ground. And the sap was still up, the leaves were still on, the leaves had not dropped yet. So I thought, wow, that's interesting. And I found a similar sapling about 2 inches in diameter, and I was like, I wonder if I could do that. So I tried breaking this 2-inch sapling, and there was absolutely no way I could do it. So I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. So I continue hiking up the trail, and the trail is very hard packed with, anywhere from softball sized rocks to basketball sized boulders half buried in this hard packed trail. So I continue up the trail, and I noticed there were 3 or 4 boulders that had been dug out of the trail, and there was no sign of like any trail maintenance, no heavy equipment on the trail doing trail maintenance at all. It's like these boulders were just perfectly picked up out of this hard packed trail, and they were nowhere to be found. And there were about 3 of them like that, 3 or 4 of them like that. And I notated that, and I was like, okay, that's weird also. So I continue hiking up the trail, and I get up into the switchbacks, and I hear a branch break on my right-hand side. I pretended to ignore it, and I kept on hiking up the trail, and about 15 yards later, I hear something thud and hit the ground. I could feel the vibration through my feet, but I couldn't see anything. I didn't notice any deer or any wildlife or anything that would make that sound. And again, I continued to ignore it, that thump, and continued up the trail. And then about another 15, 20 yards, I heard a branch break on the left side of the trail. And again, I didn't see anything. And I pretended to ignore it, and I continued up to the top of the trail and took a rest there for about a half hour, 45 minutes, and walked back. Now, the next day, I didn't want to go up that same trail, so I went up a back trail just because of the experience the day before. It was pretty odd. I saw the signs, I saw the tree break, the boulders dug out of the trail, the branch breaks while I was hiking up the trail. So I took a different trail. I took a back trail and hiked up to the top of the peak and rested there for about an hour, and then hiked back down. And I got to this one section of trail, and all the hair on the back of my neck stood up. And immediately when the hair on the back of my neck stood up, a tree got pushed over. There was no wind at the time, no foul weather at the time, no wind at all. And I was like, okay, I'm getting out of here. And I continued to hike down the back trail into the parking lot area and took off. And those were my 2 experiences, 2 separate experiences in that same state park.
My goodness, did you usually wear the same thing when you would go hiking, the same type of outfit or different outfits?
No, I would usually wear shorts in the summertime and a tank top and a backpack. Around September, when this would happen, I'd wear long cargo type pants and a shirt or a light pullover and a backpack. So I wouldn't wear the same identical clothing.
Okay. But there are different things that'd probably be uniform, but other things different. The rocks that were picked out of the ground, Were those the basketball-sized ones, or what size would you say those were?
Yeah, they were definitely basketball-sized ones. And I noticed absolutely no heavy equipment on the trail, like they were doing trail maintenance. And I was thinking, okay, teenagers could have been, but what teenager is going to take the time to dig a basketball-sized boulder out of the trail? And this is an extremely hard-packed trail. And I noticed no claw marks, no fingernail marks, nothing. It was like these boulders were picked perfectly clean out of this hard packed trail.
Man, listening to this, it's either something was messing with you or something didn't want you there. Was there a reason why you would act like you didn't notice the breaks, or why you would purposely ignore them?
Yeah, there is. Well, I grew up in Florida in the 70s. I saw the Leonard Nimoy, In Search of, and, all that. So I was always aware of the possibility of Bigfoot, and I was always a believer. I don't like to think that man knows everything that's out there, because I know we certainly don't. So I've always been intrigued by the possibility of Bigfoot being out there, and I've basically always believed in him since I was a child. So, after listening to other people's experiences and the signs that they witness, that's why I pretty much ignored the branch breaks and the thud on the ground. So, I was like, okay, I think I know what this is.
Yeah.
I don't want to antagonize it. I'm just going to pretend I didn't hear it and be on my merry way.
Absolutely. And especially because these hikes are part of your rehabilitation. So at this point, you've had, so what is in 2016, what is your physical state like regarding is a right arm and shoulder, right?
Yes. Yeah. 2016, after, hiking all year long up and down the same trail and taking different back trails, my cardio was pretty darn good. I have partial use of my right arm and shoulder now, and I was using hiking sticks, which would help with therapy on my right arm. So yeah, I was in pretty darn good shape.
Okay.
I dropped, especially during the summertime in North Carolina with 90-degree heat, high humidity. I dropped weight pretty fast. I dropped about 30 pounds in 1 month.
Good for you, dude. Wow.
But unfortunately, I've put it back on over the years.
Well, that's the story, right? That's the story. I know what that's like, is what I'm saying. So it's so very interesting. When you had the hair stand up on the back of your neck and then the tree got pushed over, from what you heard, was it a quick fall or slow fall? Like it's kind of like crack, 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 and then fall over? Or do you remember any specifics like that?
Yeah, it wasn't a very fast fall. It was gradually cracking, and then it just crashed into the forest. And I looked in that direction, and I did not see anything at all. But I thought it was weird because as soon as I hit that area, and it was a different area than the day I'd hiked before. It's like the day before, the hair on the back of my neck didn't stand up or anything. It's just like I didn't even acknowledge it. But this day, yeah, when I hit that section of trail and the hair on the back of my neck stood up, I was like, okay, this is not right. And then immediately I heard the tree cracking and the tree push over. And like I said, there was absolutely no wind at all.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great detail. The no wind for sure. Oh man, that kind of stuff. It freaks me out. I've had that happen before in Iowa. It's the freakiest thing.
Oh yeah.
So it sounds though you're hiking these trails so many times. Let's say a normal day hiking these trails, would things happen?
No, absolutely not. Those those were the only two, and I've been hiking these trails for a good year and a half, 2 years, and those are the only two things that happened to me. And it's like around the September, October time frame. All the other times I'd hiked that trail, no weird experiences whatsoever.
It's very strange.
No sign of tree breaks, nothing unusual except for those 2 days.
Right. Are you able to share the park that this happened in, or is this something that we need to keep keep off there?
Yeah, I'll share it. It's Crowder's Mountain State Park.
Crowder's Mountain.
Yep.
Okay.
And it borders Kings Mountain State Park in South Carolina. And what really freaked me out is after these experiences at Crowder's Mountain, I looked up the statistics on the park, and that park gets millions and millions of visitors a year. But what I found during my days of hiking that park was most of the visitors are on the weekends, where it's even difficult to find a parking spot. You usually have to park on the side of the road because the park is so crowded. So, it's the absolute last place I would ever think about having an experience at, but it did happen. And like I said, these experiences were during the week, during midweek, when hardly anybody would be there. There might be one or two cars in the parking lot, and that was it.
Gotcha. That's an area, I for listeners that don't know yet, I have a map on BigfootSocietyPodcast.com where I've been putting the report encounters from the episodes on this big map of the U.S. It looks like the closest thing I have to there so far is in Bowling Green, South Carolina, which is across the border. Some
Right.
tree knocks and etc. But that's really interesting. I don't think I've heard of Crowder's Mountain, so I'll have to look into that. But it sounds like this was not the most intense experience that you had, though.
No, sir, it was not.
Would you be able to walk us through what happened during that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So the third experience, or technically the fourth experience, I would say, we've been going through a very difficult time. I had a mother that had Alzheimer's and dementia, and we had to put her into a dementia ward, which was not very pleasant. So it was a very stressful time. My wife was working third shift as a CNA at a local nursing home. So I figured it would be a good time to have a weekend getaway. So I surprised her by renting a yurt in a campground about 10 miles west of Bryson City, North Carolina. So she was happy with that. I picked her up right after she got off work, and she was working third shift. She was a trooper, and she was able to stay up for most of the day after working a 12-hour shift. And so we drove up to this campground about 10 miles west of Bryson City. The campground was, I want to say, maybe 3/4 of a mile off old Highway 74. And there's about, I don't know, 7 or 8 yurts, 9 yurts, something like that, that this campground rents out. So we showed up on a Saturday. The campground was packed. There's probably about 50 people there. I don't know if it was like a church outing or family reunion or whatever. So these yurts are laid out in different spots in the campground, and they're all connected by gravel paths. There's a shower house, restroom facilities in the shower house area. And so we get there and it's crowded, and I'm thinking, this is not what we signed up for. We wanted, some nice peace and quiet. So the caretakers of the campground happened to be there, and I was asking them about the wildlife in the area, because I was curious because I'm a hunter. And, he's like, yeah, we got turkey, plenty of turkey, deer, fox, all that. And he said, actually, last year we had a bear try and break into the yurt next to yours. I'm like, oh, okay. So we didn't want to spend the day in the crowded campground. So we decided to go to Clingman's Dome, which is like, if not the highest point east of the Rockies, one of the highest points, I believe. So we went to Clingman's Dome. We hiked up to Clingman's Dome. Can't really call it a hike because it's a paved trail that goes up to Clingman's Dome. Spent the day doing that. After that, we went back to Bryson City and had a good meal, ate at a Mexican restaurant, picked up a 12-pack of beer, headed back to the campground, and it was absolutely deserted. So we were happy about that. So we built a campfire out in the campfire ring outside of the yurt and sitting there enjoying the fire. And it's getting towards dusk. We're listening to the frogs and the crickets and the birds and everything and enjoying the campfire. Started getting just before like dark where you can't see anything. And I noticed something extremely fast, low to the ground, and all black, just shoot across the trail, probably 60, 70 yards away from where we were sitting. It was just a black flash out of the corner of my eye, low to the ground. So I was assuming it, probably a fox or whatever, some small little four-legged creature. And then after that happened, all the sounds went dead quiet. No frogs, no insects, no birds, nothing, just dead quiet. And it's getting to the point where it was getting dark. So I told my wife, I was like, okay, it's time for us to head into the yurt. So we head into the yurt. We get into bed. My wife is playing a game on her phone. I'm reading a book. And we were doing that for about 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden, my wife just starts frantically tapping me on my left shoulder. She was sleeping on my left side. She starts tapping me on my left shoulder. And immediately I hear very heavy bipedal footsteps walking along this one of the gravel paths. When I say heavy, I mean really heavy bipedal footprints or footsteps, because remember the campground was crowded at one point, and you could hear people walking along a gravel path, and it didn't sound near as heavy as what this thing sounded like. So I hear these bipedal footsteps. It walks up right behind the headboard of our yurt that we're staying in. I immediately stand up in my boxers. I grab my pistol. I had a little H&K 9mm. I'm standing there and not hearing anything. And this thing starts either mouth popping or popping its teeth together. And that's when I racked around in my pistol, figuring, okay, if this is a person, they know what racking around in a pistol sounds like, and they'll take off. And so I racked around in my pistol. This thing did absolutely nothing. It's just standing there popping its teeth or its gums together. My wife whispers to me, set off your truck alarm. So I set off my truck alarm. Nothing. This thing is continually popping its mouth behind our headboard of our bed. I set the truck alarm off 2 times, and I figured, okay, if it's a bear or whatever, the truck alarm will scare it off. This thing did not move. It just sat there and popped its teeth together, or its gums. I'm not sure which one it was. And I'll tell you, Jeremiah, I've never felt fear like that in my life. I've spent most of my misspent adult life in a motorcycle club, so I've been in some very tense situations with people, and I've never been this freaking scared in my life. It was like a primeval fear took over me, where I could feel the blood rush up into my head, and all I could hear was my heartbeat in my ears. And I'm standing there with this pistol loaded, going, okay, if this is a person, do I shoot through the tent and possibly face murder charges, plus ruin a fancy $30,000 yurt? What do I do? So I stood there, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes, didn't hear any more mouth popping or teeth clicking together or anything. Didn't hear this thing walk off at all. So I lay back down in bed and eventually I fall asleep. And it's to the morning time. We get up. My wife heads to the shower house, take a shower. I get up. I walk around behind the yurt where this thing was standing. And I saw a half a footprint and then a full footprint that was, I would say, between 14 and 16 inches long. Bare footprint. You could see the toe impressions. I wear a size 13 boot, and this thing exceeded the length of my work boot by a good 2 to 3 inches. My wife gets out of the shower. I motion her over to where I am standing behind the yurt. She takes a look at the footprints and she's like, "We're getting out of here now." And that's when we packed up our belongings and we got the heck out of Dodge. And that was my final experience with whatever this thing was.
Scott, that's intense. Oh my goodness. Wow, dude. I mean, I can't believe you made it through that. That's a lot of stress to be under for that long of time.
Yeah, that was supposed to be our relaxing weekend getaway.
Yeah, you need another weekend from that one. My goodness, did you I know you were in a rush to get out there. Did you happen to get any pictures of those footprints?
No, I didn't. So the substrate there was like hard packed, just granite substrate, and a lot of leaf litter, a lot of pine needles and leaf litter. And I had a crappy cell phone at the time. So I thought about taking pictures of it, but I'm like, nobody's going to believe me anyway. So why even bother? My wife saw them and she knew what they were. And I'm like, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And that's even better detail to know that, this ground was in such a way and you're still seeing those footprints. How heavy would that have had to have been to leave those footprints then,
Yeah. And what got me was like when we heard it walk up behind us, I would have thought if it was like a wild animal, well, of course it's a wild animal, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
If it was like any other thing, it would have just, sniffed around, made a circuit around. You're looking for food or whatever, but no, these footsteps walked up this gravel path and walked right up behind our bed.
Yeah.
And when I walked out there to look where it had been, it's like from the ground to our headboard would have been a good, I don't know, around 6 foot to the top of the headboard from the ground outside the yurt. And this thing was like a good, I want to say, 1.5 to 2 feet above our headboard. So,
oh, wow. So you're saying those sounds were coming from something that was about 7 to 8 feet up?
Yeah, absolutely.
How tall are you?
I am 6'3".
So you're standing there listening to this thing. You're having to look up at it as it's doing this weird mouth pop noise.
I was looking pretty much parallel with it, really. But yeah, it was terrifying. When I say, I've never experienced fear like that before. I don't know if it was hitting me with infrasound. I don't know, but immediately all the blood rushed up to my head, and all I could hear was my heartbeat.
That's a when your body starts reacting in that way, that's a bad place to be in. I know that from experience. It's bad. My goodness, did you so you got out of there quick, which is probably a good call. Did you ever give a call back to the place to be like, "Hey, what do you guys have going on there?" or anything like that?
No, I didn't, because they probably would have just said it, like the caretaker told me earlier. Oh, a bear tried to break into the yurt next door. So I thought about writing something in the logbook, but I didn't. It's like nobody's going to believe me. Why bother?
Well, I mean, yeah, I get it. It just takes that one person to share, and then all the other people that have been waiting to share to be, oh, maybe there's something to what I experienced. But I get when people don't treat you with respect what you experience. It doesn't feel good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll be 60 years old this October. So I'm not really concerned anymore about what people think. I know what happened, and that's exactly what happened. I'm kind of curious because I've heard, after I've been listening, I listen about every day to your show and multiple others, just trying to see if anybody else has ever had that mouth popping or teeth clicking together experience. Because some people will say, oh, it's a bear or it's a hog, or but I know it definitely was not a bear and it definitely was not a hog. And after that black figure ran across the trail real low to the ground and everything stopped, all the noises stopped, I'm like, okay, this is going to get interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And the mouth pops, they do come up more often than not in accounts, or you read about them. And the great thing about your account is you have the actual, even though you didn't get a visual of whatever was there, you got visual of tracks, where the tracks should be. And it sounds like, I mean, you're aware of what bear footprints of a bear look like, and these were not footprints of a bear.
No, it was not like a double step of a bear or anything like that. It was, a half a footprint and then a full footprint.
14 to 16 inch. That's pretty solid. Oh, have you ever been back to that place again, or is it a place where you're like, now we'll go somewhere else next time?
No, after that, I moved to Wyoming in 2019, and I'll travel back occasionally once or twice a year to see my daughter and my grandchildren, but that's about it. We haven't been back to that place and no desire to.
Now, just to the side, Wyoming is a pretty wild area. Have you guys ever been to Yellowstone or any places like that out there?
No, we have not been to Yellowstone yet. If we do go to Yellowstone, I want to go during the off season if the weather allows.
Sure.
The weather predicts everything out here. When I go hunting, I usually go over around Saratoga, around the Sierra Madres, and to date, I have not had any weird experiences when I go hunting out here. But I do make it a point when I go hiking or I go hunting out here, I'll say in my head, hey, I'm here. I'm not looking for you. I'm not looking to bother you. I'm just here to get food or go hiking. I'll make a practice of saying that in my head and hopefully not have another experience, because I don't even look for these things. I don't want another experience. I don't go looking for them. I don't want to go looking for them. But I'm acutely aware of what signs they leave. And if I go into an area and I happen to see those signs, then I'll vacate the area. But as of yet, nothing has happened to me out of the ordinary out here yet. So hopefully, I don't know about the theory of them marking people that I've heard. I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. I just know I don't want another experience like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you might even, so a reason you might also be listening to stuff like this is to figure out the places not to go to,
Yes.
Exactly. Like, don't go to Palisades Reservoir on the Idaho Wyoming border. I wouldn't go there.
Right.
That's a pretty active area. But oh my goodness, Scott, some very interesting encounters. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing. We don't get to hear a lot about North Carolina, but I think it's really important that listeners know what kind of things are going on out there, especially around the Bryson City area. And I appreciate you coming on, and I just want to make sure you were able to share everything that you came on the show to share today.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in North Carolina, I used to go hunting in the South Mountain region area, and that area has been really active also. Just that whole area of North Carolina. I mean, in fact, everything in North Carolina from the coast to the mountains is just a really, really active region. So,
absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. I do have a few things to say to you off air, but thank you so much for spending some time with me today, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Every encounter we share reminds us that the world is bigger and stranger than we think, and that the truth is often hiding just beyond the tree line. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with a friend who's into mysteries, monsters, or the unexplained. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow the show there and leave us a 5-star positive review, because all of that helps more people discover the show. And remember, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot sighting, please, I'd love to hear from you. So email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's start the conversation. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check out our membership community over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. And that's where you can hear tomorrow's episode today, early and ad-free, and members-only episodes every week. Also, it's a place to connect with other people that are into the Bigfoot subject as much as you are. Thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there. And see you in the woods.